Ronnie Coleman is universally regarded as the strongest Mr. Olympia winner in history. Beyond his 8 consecutive Olympia titles from 1998 to 2005, he was known for lifting weights that bordered on powerlifting and strongman levels. His most famous feats include deadlifting 800 pounds for a double and squatting 800 pounds for reps, both performed while already an Olympia champion. Coleman regularly trained with 200-pound dumbbells on the flat bench press, and his leg press sessions often involved over 2,000 pounds loaded on the machine. Unlike many bodybuilders who tapered their weights as their careers advanced, Coleman seemed to grow stronger year after year. His training philosophy revolved around high-volume, heavy compound lifts, executed with intensity and minimal assistance gear. This raw power made his physique dense, thick, and three-dimensional, separating him from contemporaries. In terms of combining bodybuilding and true maximal strength, Coleman remains unmatched, setting the benchmark for how strong a Mr. Olympia can realistically be. Dorian Yates, 6-time Mr. Olympia champion from 1992 to 1997, was one of the strongest and most intense bodybuilders to ever hold the title. Unlike Coleman's high-volume approach, Yates followed a heavy-duty training style based on Mike Mentzer's principles, which emphasized extremely heavy weights, very low volume, and maximum intensity. His strength numbers were legendary in the bodybuilding community. Yates was known to perform incline barbell presses with 405 pounds for strict sets, hammer rows with 450 pounds, and bent-over barbell rows exceeding 400 pounds with tight form. His leg strength was equally impressive, with squats well over 600 pounds performed during his off-season training. Yates focused less on showcasing single-rep maxes and more on grinding out brutally heavy sets to failure, which produced his hallmark grainy muscle density and back thickness that dominated Olympia stages. His raw pulling power and back development placed him second only to Ronnie Coleman in strength among Olympia winners, earning him a reputation as one of the most powerful bodybuilders of the modern era. Franco Columbu, the 1976 and 1981 Mr. Olympia champion, was not only a bodybuilder, but also a world-class powerlifter and strongman. Standing at just 5 feet 5 inches, Columbu's compact frame gave him exceptional leverage for heavy lifting, and he routinely displayed feats of raw power that few bodybuilders could match. His official competition lifts included a 525-pound bench press, a 655-pound deadlift, and a 750-pound squat, all remarkable numbers considering his body weight rarely exceeded 190 to 195 pounds in competition shape. Columbu's background as a powerlifter and boxer meant he approached bodybuilding with a different mindset, prioritizing strength as much as aesthetics. He even competed in the inaugural World's Strongest Man competition in 1977, further proving his versatility and raw strength. Despite suffering a serious leg injury during that contest, he returned to win his second Olympia title years later, cementing his toughness and resilience. Columbu's ability to combine elite-level strength with competitive bodybuilding success makes him one of the strongest Olympia champions in history, pound for pound perhaps the strongest ever to step on stage. Sergio Oliva, known as the Myth, was a 3-time Mr. Olympia champion from 1967 to 1969 and one of the most physically imposing competitors of his time. Unlike many bodybuilders of the era who focused mainly on aesthetics, Oliva combined size, symmetry, and tremendous strength. His early years in Cuba included Olympic-style weightlifting, which gave him a foundation in explosive power and heavy compound movements. Oliva was reported to have clean and jerked over 400 pounds and could bench press in the mid-5s, numbers that rivaled powerlifters of his era. His back and shoulders were legendary, built through massive pulling power and heavy presses that allowed him to dominate his contemporaries in thickness and density. Unlike Franco Columbu, who relied on pound-for-pound efficiency, Oliva's strength came from sheer muscle mass and leverage. With arms that exceeded 20 inches and a dramatic V-taper, his strength translated directly into his physique, giving him a dense, powerful look decades ahead of his time. Sergio remains one of the most powerful Olympians of the classic era, with strength that matched his mythical stage presence. Lee Haney, the 8-time Mr. Olympia champion from 1984 to 1991, is remembered as one of the most dominant bodybuilders in history, blending aesthetics, symmetry, and sheer size. While Haney was not as openly focused on extreme powerlifting numbers as Ronnie Coleman or Dorian Yates, his training approach still required immense strength to move the kind of weights necessary for building his massive frame. Haney often emphasized controlled form and muscle contraction, but he routinely pressed 405 pounds on the incline bench for multiple reps and squatted with over 600 pounds in strict training sets. His back thickness, which became one of his trademark features, was built through heavy rows and deadlift variations, often pushing beyond 500 pounds. Haney also credited much of his development to progressive overload, steadily increasing weight over time rather than chasing maximum lifts. This combination of intelligent training and raw power allowed him to dominate for nearly a decade, making him one of the strongest and most consistent Olympia winners of all time. Arnold Schwarzenegger, seven-time Mr. Olympia champion between 1970 and 1980, remains one of the most iconic figures in bodybuilding history. While Arnold is best remembered for his symmetry, charisma, and ability to popularize the sport worldwide, his strength was also significant. Trained originally in Austria with a background in Olympic lifting and powerlifting, Arnold built his physique on heavy compound movements. Reports from his early training years indicate a bench press in the 470 to 500 pound range, squats around 550 pounds, and deadlifts surpassing 650 pounds. He also performed overhead presses with more than 275 pounds, demonstrating complete body strength. Arnold often used pyramid training, starting with moderate weights and working up to near maximal loads, which allowed him to combine strength development with hypertrophy. Though not the absolute strongest of all Olympia winners, Arnold's combination of lifting ability and discipline gave him the foundation for one of the most admired physiques in history. His raw strength, especially during his prime years in the late 1960s and early 1970s, placed him among the top-tier Olympians in terms of power and functionality. Mamadou El-Spieh, better known as Big Ramy, won the Mr. Olympia title in 2020 and 2021, becoming the first Egyptian champion and one of the heaviest men ever to stand on the Olympia stage. Competing at nearly 300 pounds with stage conditioning, Ramy's size alone indicates the level of strength required to build and maintain such mass. His training style has always emphasized moving extremely heavy weights with solid form, often prioritizing machines and controlled movements to protect his joints, but still loading plates well beyond what most competitors could handle. Reports from his off-season training show Big Ramy performing leg presses with over 2,000 pounds, bench pressing in the 500-pound range, and squatting with weights exceeding 600 pounds. His lower body strength is especially noteworthy, contributing to his massive quads, which became his trademark. Although not always public about his exact one-rep maxes, the sheer volume of weight he handled consistently in training demonstrated functional strength at an elite level. Ramy's power, combined with his historic size, secures him a strong placement among the most powerful Olympia champions. Phil Heath, nicknamed The Gift, is a seven-time Mr. Olympia champion, winning consecutively from 2011 to 2017. Known primarily for his round, 3D muscle fullness and razor-sharp conditioning, Heath was not often associated with raw power in the way Ronnie Coleman or Dorian Yates were. However, his strength should not be underestimated. Before turning professional, Heath trained heavily with compound lifts to build the dense mass that defined his physique. In the gym, he was reported to incline bench press well over 405 pounds for controlled sets, squat in the mid-500-pound range, and deadlift in excess of 600 pounds. Unlike Coleman, Heath's focus was not on pushing maximum weights, but rather maintaining strict form and tension throughout each movement. This strategy minimized injury and allowed him to consistently refine his physique. His genetics gave him an extraordinary advantage in muscle shape, but the strength foundation behind those genetics was still significant. While not the absolute strongest Olympia champion, Heath's disciplined use of heavy training within safe limits placed him among the top modern competitors in strength. Jay Cutler, four-time Mr. Olympia champion, 2006, 2007, 2009, and 2010, was one of the most massive and disciplined competitors of the modern era. Known for his dense quads and overall balanced mass, Cutler built his physique through years of heavy, high-volume training. While not as reckless with extreme poundages as Ronnie Coleman, Cutler still moved impressive weights consistently in his workouts. He frequently squatted in the 600-pound range and was well known for his controlled pressing strength, including incline bench presses with 405 to 455 pounds for multiple repetitions. His dedication to progressive overload and careful technique made him one of the most methodical Olympia champions in history. Cutler also emphasized heavy leg presses, often loading the sled with well over 1,500 pounds, which contributed to his iconic quad sweep. Though he did not chase powerlifting numbers, the sheer size of his physique required an extraordinary strength foundation. Jay's ability to maintain heavy training loads for decades while staying relatively injury-free is what helped him dethrone Coleman and establish his own legacy legacy as both a strong and intelligent champion. Dexter Jackson, nicknamed The Blade, earned his place in history by winning the 2008 Mr. Olympia and setting the record for the most professional bodybuilding titles ever, with over 25 IFBB wins. While Jackson was never the largest competitor on stage, his longevity and consistency proved that his training foundation was built on disciplined strength. Standing at about 5 feet 6 inches and competing around 230 pounds, Dexter used moderate to heavy weights with strict form, focusing on muscle isolation rather than chasing extreme loads. Still, his strength levels were impressive. He was known to incline press 365 to 405 pounds with perfect control, perform squats in the 500-pound range, and handle 150 to 160-pound dumbbells for chest presses. Jackson's strength was not about headline-grabbing numbers, but about applying steady, controlled tension to his muscles for decades without significant injuries. This ability allowed him to maintain peak condition across 3 decades of competition, a feat unmatched in bodybuilding history. His legacy shows that while he may not rank among the very strongest Olympians in terms of raw power, his strength-to-size efficiency and durability remain exceptional. Samir Bannout, known as the Lion of Lebanon, won the Mr. Olympia title in 1983. Although he only captured the crown once, Bannout is remembered for his flawless symmetry, detailed muscle definition, and unique back development, which many experts still consider one of the best in Olympia history. In terms of strength, Bannout trained with a style that combined both heavy compound lifts and strict isolation work. His pressing strength was solid, with incline barbell presses over 365 pounds for clean sets and dumbbell presses with 120 to 140-pound dumbbells. For legs, Bannout squatted in the 500-pound range, but often chose controlled machine movements to refine shape rather than chasing maximum loads. His back thickness came from heavy rows and pull-downs, frequently stacking entire weight machines. Unlike Coleman or Yates, Bannout's focus was not pure strength, but rather the balance of power and precision, using weights heavy enough to stimulate growth while maintaining near-perfect form. While not among the absolute strongest Olympia champions, his consistent use of progressive resistance laid the foundation for his legendary 1983 victory. Chris Dickerson, who won the Mr. Olympia title in 1982, was the first African-American to win both the Mr. America and Mr. Olympia, and he stood out for his classical proportions, balance, and posing artistry. At 5 feet 6 inches and competing around 190 to 200 pounds, Dickerson was never the largest competitor, but his strength was still noteworthy given his ability to sculpt dense, aesthetic muscle. His training emphasized controlled compound lifts with reported bench presses in the 315 to 365-pound range and squats around 450 pounds. Deadlifting was not a primary focus for him, but his pulling power supported his back development. Dickerson's greatest strength was consistency, training with weights heavy enough to stimulate growth while prioritizing form and injury prevention. Unlike Coleman, Yates, or Columbu, who chased extreme poundages, Dickerson's strategy revolved around smart progression and high-quality repetitions. His Olympia victory proved that raw mass and brute strength weren't the only routes to the title. While not among the strongest champions by numbers, his disciplined strength levels supported one of the most refined and balanced physiques ever crowned Mr. Olympia. Brandon Curry, the 2019 Mr. Olympia champion, represents the modern evolution of bodybuilding where symmetry, balance, and refinement are as critical as mass. At around 250 pounds on stage, Curry built his physique through years of disciplined training, gradually shifting from a mass-building approach in his early years to a more aesthetic-driven program, leading up to his Olympia victory. In terms of strength, Curry was not known for chasing world-class powerlifting numbers, but consistently handled weights that reflected his elite level. His bench press strength has been reported in the 405 to 455-pound range, while his squats and deadlifts have been recorded around 500 to 550 pounds. Curry often emphasized higher-volume workouts with controlled heavy sets rather than extreme maximum lifts. This method allowed him to avoid many of the injuries that plagued other Olympia champions. His strength was applied intelligently, building muscle density without sacrificing shape. While Curry doesn't rank among the absolute strongest champions, his ability to combine heavy training with precision sculpting played a key role in earning him the Sandow Trophy in 2019. Frank Zane, 3-time Mr. Olympia champion from 1977 to 1979, is often remembered as the aesthetic king of bodybuilding. Competing at around 185 pounds, Zane was by far one of the lightest men to win the Olympia, yet his razor-sharp conditioning, proportions, and presentation set him apart. While he did not possess the extreme size or raw lifting power of Ronnie Coleman or Franco Columbu, Zane was still a disciplined and capable strength trainer. His bench press hovered in the 250 to 300-pound range, and he was able to squat and deadlift around 400 pounds during his prime. These numbers may not be staggering compared to larger champions, but for his body weight, they were respectable. Zane's strength lay not in sheer poundage, but in his mastery of resistance training principles. He emphasized perfect form, high time under tension, and consistency, which allowed him to train injury-free and maintain one of the most polished physiques in Olympia history. Though not ranked among the strongest, Zane demonstrated how controlled strength application could create legendary results without the need for extreme loads. Hadi Choopan, nicknamed the Persian Wolf, captured the Mr. Olympia title in 2022 after years of climbing the ranks with remarkable consistency. Standing around 5 feet 6 inches and weighing close to 240 pounds on stage, Choopan is known for his granite-like conditioning and density rather than sheer mass. His training style, however, reflects serious strength levels that support his muscle maturity. Choopan has been documented performing strict incline bench presses with over 405 pounds, heavy dumbbell presses with 150 pounds, and barbell rows with loads exceeding 400 pounds. His leg training also involves squats in the 500 to 600 pound range, paired with demanding leg press sessions exceeding 1,200 pounds. What sets Choopan apart is his ability to combine strength with precision, rarely using sloppy form and instead applying maximum tension to target muscles. This approach, sustained over years, gave him the detailed, dense look that won him Olympia gold. While he may not match Coleman or Yates in raw poundages, Choopan's level of applied strength ranks him high among modern champions who blend power with aesthetics. Shawn Rhoden, who won the Mr. Olympia title in 2018, is remembered for his aesthetic, classic-inspired physique that brought back balance and refinement to the stage during an era dominated by mass monsters. At around 240 pounds in contest shape, Rhoden was not the biggest or strongest Olympia champion, but his training still required considerable strength to sculpt and maintain his world-class proportions. Rhoden often used a blend of moderate to heavy free weights and machines, focusing on precise control rather than extreme poundages. His pressing strength was solid, with incline barbell presses in the 315 to 365 pound range and dumbbell presses with 120 to 130 pound weights for multiple reps. For legs, he squatted in the mid-400s and relied heavily on leg presses exceeding 1,000 pounds to shape his quads. Unlike Coleman or Yates, Rhoden didn't pursue headline-worthy lifts, but his disciplined application of strength to build detail, symmetry, and flow was undeniable. His victory in 2018 proved that controlled strength, when applied with artistry, could overcome competitors who relied on brute size and power.